Disagree with them. Don't disagree with them at the table or with you. That's what you learn.
Yep.
There's some way, like, as soon as we've got a stewism, you can hit like a little.
Like the bell at Taco Bell.
Wonderful. Thank you very much and welcome everybody to our meeting for the 29th of October 2025 with the slightly later start time, which is a little bit weird. So if you've been tuned in since 10:30 this morning, you might be very excited to see that we're now kicking off the full part of the meeting. Right. Out of care. We have someone on.
Oh, you.
Her worship. Yeah.
That's still be me.
Says you.
Please stand by. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, e hua atu mā tātou I tēnei rā. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou kia tātou katoa. Omie, kuie, tai. May peace be widespread. May the sea be like greenstone, a pathway for us all this day. Give love, receive love. Let us show respect for each other. Join, gather, unite. Great sentiments for today. And we move to apologies. We have an apology for lateness from Councillor Jackson. Happy to move that be accepted. Sarah's happy to second it. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. As far as I'm aware, we still have no public forum. Declarations of interest.
We didn't
Don't
register
have them
on.
yet, do we?
No, but just reminding folk.
Reminding folk, given that they are not formally before us yet, has anybody got anything that they want to raise in relation to an interest in any of the reports before us today? Thank you. In which case we can move on to page number 6, item number 1, Reserve Land Status Classification Report with Gordy and David. Welcome.
Good.
So over the last 12 months, council staff have been working towards identifying all the reserve land council owns and ensuring that it has the appropriate purpose and classification under the Reserves Act. So in July, council approved a number of classifications which have been processed at the moment, and the remaining 10 parcels which are subject to this report required public notification, which has been undertaken with no submissions. And once classified according to their primary purpose, which is the reason of this report, then a reserve management plan can be developed, which would involve the public being consulted on to help us determine what they particularly want a reserve to be managed to look like over the coming years. So it's more or less a procedural process, so I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Happy to move A, B and C.
There's no change in activity or anything on those, is it? It is just on paper.
Just a process.
They will all continue as they are and they're all budgeted for and
Yep. No,
works, programs.
yeah, no budget implications or anything.
It's good. Oh, in that case, I'll second it. Get it done.
Thank you, Martin and Sarah. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And then the request for Minister of Conservation's consent for electricity easement over various Cromwell reserves.
So this report requests is a request from Aurora to have several electricity easements granted over council reserves in Cromwell, and that's to assist with ensuring the supply resilience of electricity for the Cromwell area, which is growing, as we know. Council can agree to the granting of such easements under delegation from the Minister of Conservation. It's not clear, I'm happy to work through where they are on the plans that are attached, or if not, you don't need to read it.
Maybe it's something what they are.
So they're all, the last on page 34, they're all switch boxes with them. Probably I either don't have easements at the moment or are too small, so they'll be upgraded and enlarged on the reserve side. And there's one cable relocation, and that's on page 20, and that's the corner of Pierre Ave and Jollies Road. And that's going across the corner of that reserve rather than round through the road, which would be typical because it don't need an easement through a road. So that would allow for potentially a future roundabout near the development. So that's sort of future proofing by relocating it back further from the road. So that's what we're asking for, quite simple easements really.
Does that mess with your irrigation there? I'm not sure.
We will they'll relocate the irrigation with this.
Harrisons are happy that they're paid gardens still pristine. Excellent. Does the cabling that's going across here out there on that page 20 plan allow for the development of Gear Estate as per the plan we have at the stage, or is there further work that will go into the town from there? Where's that power coming from? Gear Estate?
That's, I assume it's that possible cable pulling pit.
Yeah. That's one
A, B,
access
C, and
point.
D.
And then from
Yeah, the
Rimwood
D
further down.
looks
the
to
other
come.
side. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, further down the other side as well. But yes, that is one point.
RMU would service that. So it's got extra capacity on there.
Yeah.
Do these easements ever allow for, I don't really, they're pretty pictures. There's a lot of colour in there.
Yeah.
If we're granted an easement and these are ground systems here and obviously underground cable and everything, is there any overhead cabling provision, or like do those easements allow any more than what we've got here, or is that electricity in general, like could be pole and wire or?
No, these easements we're approving are really approve along pretty much along the alignments that we've provided here, not overhead. That would need to be
That would be
a
separate.
different report.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And I think we much prefer undergrounding.
Yeah,
given
yeah,
what's
but we're
happening.
not opening ourselves up to that. Like, I'm just thinking with the Wayanga going out towards land that could potentially be developed, obviously, and up towards Shannon Farm.
Yeah,
There's no potential for anything overhead to go in anywhere around there.
That would have to come back.
yeah, not through this process. This is really for that
Just those
existing
specifically.
urban area, which has got growth and more, I think, increased electricity demand, and they're probably, by the sound of it, stretched to keep capacity up at times. So
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want to reroute everything so they've got good capacity. Certainly, it's going forward in this area of town.
That's good to know, just as it, it's the grant and easement now for power to be conveyed. And then, oh, actually, that means we can do this in the future. Like, it's good for people to know what we are saying yes to.
Yeah.
The limit of that is.
Yeah. However, they can do them in roads
Yeah.
through council land, whether it's reserve, council owned land, they need to come through.
They do need to come to us, yeah. Looks intricate, but
Sorry about all the detail.
you're very
good.
right. Some of those pages, are you just doing page 30? I was like, I don't even know what that is, but that is like,
Looks serious. Yeah.
that's ADHD in a drawing.
Yeah, it's good. It's good dreams, that's the stuff.
Copilot would run for its money.
Yeah.
In that case, is somebody happy to move recommendations A through to E? Thank you, Nathan. And then seconded, thank you, Bob. All those in favour? Again, carried.
Cheers.
And since I failed to read my agenda and didn't hand over to Sarah, that's all right, but we're
Noted.
heading across to Cheryl, please.
Oh,
for
she
the
gets
water portfolio.
You can take the talking stick, can you?
We are
done.
25 to 20.3 status report on Cromwell Drinking Water Upgrade Project. Patrick.
Kia ora koutou. For people that haven't met me, I'm Patrick Keenan, the Capital Projects Program Manager. Got 3 status reports today. Rather than dive into too much detail, I'll just take the reports as read. The Cromwell Water Treatment Plant is obviously an upgrade of the bore field and the construction of the new NCC building, which is called a Motor Control Centre building, which runs all the electronics and everything for the Warfield, and for a new water treatment plant at the McNabb Road site beside the reservoirs. Currently there. Last year, we completed a project which was a dedicated rising main, which these are the two ends of that will connect to the cater for growth and improve resilience on the network. So, any questions on any of our risks or issues that we've got there outlined?
I've just got one question. It says a temporary portable UV water treatment plant will be installed in October 2025. Is that what we?
That's what I mentioned before. That's being commissioned
Yep.
now.
Thank you.
And so you believe it's going to have you compliant before that?
Yes. So
Yes.
what happened is the government's water regulator, Te Mara Arawai, there's two critical barriers that they are particularly concerned around. One is for bacteria and one is for protozoa. And bacteria is treated by chlorination and protozoa is treated by UV. We were lacking protozoa barriers on a number of our water supplies, and we had been given deadlines by which to have those in place. For Cromwell, it was the end of this calendar year or December. But then what happened when we were sort of working through and Ranfurly was the government or the water regulator looked at Ranfurly and said we needed to put a boil water notice in place at Ranfurly and Patearoa because they didn't have barriers in place. And that had to stay in place until the barriers were constructed. So following on from that, we looked at Cromwell, which is the other site that has no barrier on it, and thought that there was a high risk that the water regulator would require us to put a water notice in Cromwell if we didn't give temporary barrier and the other new plants getting constructed. This new plant won't be commissioned until around May next year. So it's still on
Correct.
schedule. Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah, it just was around managing that possible, and I've since been told by the regulator quite likely risk that that's what they would have done.
we were the plant, the kit that we've gotten has come from QLDC. They used that as an emergency response to their outbreak that they had in their water network 2 years ago. So we managed to get our hands on that, bring it over here, and we're just putting it in place now.
So that the upgrade will provide better longer term solution, but this meets the compliance requirements in the short term.
I've just got one thing I'd like to say. Where it's got the Borehead Pipeworks adjacent to the Alpha Street Reserve, that photo, that's actually really huge. It's as tall as me. It's quite deceiving. It's quite deceiving if you're down there. So once a container pipe goes over the top of that, that actually at the end is going to be quite a big sort of
Structure.
yeah, and then you're going to actually plant around it so that neighbour, the grey house, is going to be screened from that because that's actually really ugly.
Yeah, it looks ugly now, but it'll look a lot better once we've got the hut around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've worked with the neighbours on the colour of the cladding and the roof.
Okay.
Talked to them about what we're planting. We've done a lot of work with the neighbours there. Unfortunately, it's sort of LINZ and council land and it's existing infrastructure. So we do have the right to upgrade it and do this, but we know that that does impact the neighbours. So we've worked closely with them to try and mitigate it as much as possible. So the proof will be in the pudding really once we've constructed the building over those sites. There'll be one at the top, there'll be another that's over the two bores at the bottom, and then there'll be a separate MCC building down the bottom as well.
And so the entry into that building, was that going to be from the rear or was that going to be from the lakeside? And how's it going to be entered?
Sorry, which building?
The same one.
That one will have just like a little doorway in it. It's actually looks big, but compared to a lot of buildings, it's not that big. It'll just have a little gate door in it.
On which side? Because at the moment,
It'll be on the reserve side, rather
Oh, right,
than-
okay, so around the sort of the back end.
Yeah.
One other comment is, I met a neighbour down there and they have had no communication. They're the house that is actually one layer back from the row on the lakefront. So behind the grey house.
Okay,
And they have had a lot of pipes and right on their boundary. And they didn't know that was going to happen. So it came as quite a surprise to them. They also have an entrance into the reserve from the back of their property. So their concern was it would have been nice, and any further communication, could you include them in that communication? Because they've got a cat, dog, kids, and it would just be nice for everyone to know what they're dealing with on the back of their property.
that's news to me because we have done letter drops, we've done door knocks, both
Around,
staff and the contractors. So
yeah, she said to me
good
they
feedback.
had,
I will.
yeah, she said they hadn't heard a dicky bird.
That was on Sunhaven Cove, that street there.
Yeah,
Because I've been there and met with the
Yeah,
neighbours on
she-
that front row, so I guess,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm surprised that
No,
they've had
so-
lack of awareness of that.
She just said, could they be included? She understands, she's not angry, she knows it's necessary and all that, but she just said, could they please be included in the
Sure,
in
no
the
problem.
communication? Yeah,
And the access, we did have to put a line through the back of that reserve to put the power through that area. And that was a short-term access issue, but that's resolved now. So there'll be no further access issues for them. ongoing.
that's,
But,
yeah.
yeah, we'll get in touch with them.
Yeah.
And just to clarify that, the new Borehead, the height of that, that's all legislated now because that was kind of a consequence of the Havelock North, where the bores were previously all below ground. It's all now got to be above ground, so get a contamination event occur.
Is that also so that they get accessibility and it's easier to access as opposed to under?
I think it was really about around the fact that when these things are in a pit below ground, water and dirty water can get into the top, and then that can get in through some of the joints.
Just protecting the
cavities.
source.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's it. Operationally, it does make it easier in terms of accessing some of that equipment. But yeah, it is for water safety purposes.
So are there any other questions? So if we go back to page, what is that, 39? And the recommendation is that we receive the report and note its comments, contents. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Tamer. Bob, all those in favour? Against? Carried. And now we go on to 25.20.4, page 42. Now the status report, Ranfurly and Patiaroa water treatment plant, protozoa barrier.
Okay, so these are, it's one project at two sites, and Julie's probably alluded to that in the ELT council discussion for the new councillors, is that we're having to put these protozoa barriers in at these sites. There was always in the long-term plan, there was upgrades for these water treatment plants planned. However, the focus has been on getting a protozoa barrier in place and meeting a middle ground of what was previously in the business case, like the full Monty belt and braces, but finding a happy medium in terms of cost and meeting compliance. So the delivery of that, those two projects is going pretty well. We have an interim barrier, protozoa barrier in at Ranfurly. So that's given us confidence to push ahead on the Patiaroa one, focus on making sure we get that done first. And then we'll certainly won't slow down on the Ranfurly site, but we know that Patiaroa is really critical to have that completed and functioning fully before the December deadline.
And we needed in to remove the boil water notice that's currently on Patiaroa.
Kathy, welcome.
Thank you for these for us. Just obviously the risk in relation to the critical components. Is that something that, I mean, I understand the reasoning. You say there's a lot of other councils and entities doing the same type of thing. But we've known this was coming for a while. Is this, that ordering, is it just the lead time side of things? Was that not enough time or
No,
what was?
what's happened is we're just sort of letting you guys know it could be a risk. We're actually a lot more comfortable now than we probably were in September, because this is a bit of a lag report. It's back in September. The only issue is with one of the filter housing casings, without getting too technical with it. It's a component that's critical to making it fully functioning when you've constructed it all. The suppliers to Fulton Hogan put the kit on a boat on a later date than they thought was going to be put on, and they didn't give Fulton Hogan the opportunity to say, do you want us to put it on a plane or do you want us to put it on a boat? So essentially it's 2 or 3 weeks delay, and it's for the Ranfurly site. So that's why I've got a level of confidence around it that it's not an issue from a safety or compliance perspective, but it will be a few weeks later than we hoped.
Once Ranfurly's commissioned, we will take that temporary UV that's at Ranfurly and we'll put in Omaka so that Omaka's fully compliant as well. Omaka's not on the list of, because it's got kind of a barrier, but it's not a compliant barrier. So it's not on Te Mata Arawa's initial list, but we would anticipate it's going to come up higher soon.
There's no issues with extending our borrowing of that unit.
No.
Other questions?
A bit of a general question on this. So some of this protozoa kit, is this new to council or are we using this elsewhere in our systems? I'm just thinking from a spares point of view.
We keep critical spares. So for this project, for these 2 sites, we'll keep a critical spare UV as a backup. Yes, to shorten your answer, yes, we do have critical spares.
We have critical spares, but
Yep.
they're not all the same.
Yep.
The sites, unfortunately, some have gone in earlier and they had different types of UV in them. But we are actually looking at Roxburgh, potentially changing the UV that's at Roxburgh to a different one, which would then match some of the others so that we can swap them around if we need to.
There's some engineers love bespoke designs, and that
That's what I was thinking
it's
about that.
mentioned. I get the
that housing,
heebie-jeebies. If we can standardise as much as we can, it's the way to go in terms of being able to use things across different parts of our network if we need to.
The thing, protozoa treatment's actually relatively complex too, because it's flow rates. And so depending on how much water you're trying to get through, you'll have a different setup, different size UV. So Cromwell couldn't be used at Ranfurly, for example, but Ranfurly, Roxburgh could be quite similar. Ranfurly could be similar. But then at Lake Dunstan, we don't even use UV. We've got membrane, and Omaka will probably need to be membrane up, so they won't have UV.
Any other questions? Okay, so the recommendation is that the report be received and its contents noted. Do I have a mover and seconder? Stu? Amen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we move on to now 25.20.5 on page 45, and that is in the status report, Alexandra Water Mains Renewals Project. Petra.
Similar to the other 2, the information in the status reports pretty self-evident. We're making good progress. We've finished 99% finished the work on Price Street outside the high school. We've moved up to Bridge Hill area, which Earnscleugh Road, we've gotten through most of that. But issues that we expected in terms of sometimes congestion and that, but at least the heavy commercial vehicle detour is finished now. We finished that sometime after Blossom Festival, so that's been a bit of an improvement. And we're now under traffic lights, so we've had the odd person getting impatient and abusing some of our contracting staff, which has been a bit unfortunate, but it's just part of traffic management these days. the sooner we get up Aranui Road, if you know the area, it's off Ensley Road and goes up the hill, Aranui Road and Delaney Way, the better, because that busy thoroughfare on Ensley Road is the one that we need to get back open up, but we're on a corner that has quite a highly complex valve set up that they've got to take their time and do properly, so we'll get through that. But in terms of Heb's performance and how things are progressing, we're pretty happy at this stage.
Any questions?
Not a question, but probably just a comment that it's extremely disappointing that road workers undertaking their duty to keep people safe would be abused by members of our public. And I would suggest that this council would take a very dim view of that. There is a reason why traffic management is in place. And given that abuse of road workers has been on the rise around the country, I would think they actually would probably be quite happy to say that is not acceptable in central Otago.
And look, there's changes to traffic management occurring, and I would say they've got quite a cost-effective traffic management set up on Ensley Road. We could have fully manned, but it would be way more expensive for the ratepayers. The ratepayers are funding that traffic management. So, you know, traffic lights are a way more cost-effective traffic management option that costs the ratepayers less money. So really like the ratepayers to respect the lights, because the alternative comes at a significantly higher cost.
I remember being when you put the pipes in down Me Plus Ultra, and they had traffic lights, and I met someone that had ignored the red light and came towards me, and I had to pull over up onto the grass on the verge because they just ignored it. So it's an issue right across the district. They just get frustrated. So anyway, any other questions? Okay, so the recommendation is that the report be received and its contents noted. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Casey and Gemma. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
So we're up to 25.20.6 on page 48, the October waste compliance status update.
So I'm going to do that one. Yes, so I'll take that report as read. There's only 2 sites now, so the report's got way more simpler than when we first started doing them. We've gone from sort of 5 sites to 2, and we're in the last stages with Roxburgh. The thing with Roxburgh is we will have to go through a winter before the abatement notice gets lifted, because the issues that occur are typically over the winter months. But we have the ponds desludged, the aeration will go on soon, and that'll be all in place for next winter. So we believe, and the sampling results coming back have been really promising, that the nitrate levels have dropped from what they were before the desludging got done. So it just goes to show the value of doing that work. Quite a way more cost effective way to improve performance than doing expensive plant upgrades, albeit it's an operational cost. And then Ranfurly, unfortunately with so the tendering's underway for diesel Ranfurly. Unfortunately, one of the problems we've got at Ranfurly is that we think under the new performance standards that are going to be released by Te Mara Arawai soon, that that plant may need a different type of discharge in the future, because it discharges into, basically, it's not much more than a ditch with a very low flow. It won't meet the dilution ratio. So we're just waiting for these standards to come out so that we can do a reassessment of what we might need to do in the long term, and also what it's going to, a review of the cost of re-establishing the wetland, because it may be that rather than investing at the wetland re-establishment, it's quite costly and it's not going to meet long-term requirements. It might be better to look at an alternative that will meet the long-term.
Not a very big wetland.
What was that?
It's not a very big wetland.
Oh, but it might not be compliant, and we might spend money on it and then have to do something else as well. So we'll weigh that up once the standards come out.
Very good.
So are there any other questions? Okay, so the recommendation is that the report be received and its contents noted. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Sarah. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Julie.
Sure, we now need to Stu for road.
Heavy vehicle permits, 20.7, 25-26 fee amendments. Quentin.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll take the report as read. This is just an update. So following the fees and charges for the 25-26 year, we aligned our fees and charges to councils around the region, just trying to first introduce the charges because we were getting more heavy vehicle permit applications. In doing so, we have now discovered that they are prescribed through the land transport rule, the vehicle dimension in Mass 2016 rule with prescribed fees, unless we have a bylaw that puts fees in place outside of that, which we don't. So we're just looking to update that to align to that rule. And just in terms of the financial considerations, that's for likely simplifications. There's still provision for where there's complex engineering assessment for any risk around overloading structures to be recovered at cost. Yeah, and back for any questions.
Any questions? Tracy?
Yeah, I guess when you look through there, well, I have no problem with any of the figures or anything like that. I guess 3 questions. Who are we trying to capture? How is it going to be enforced? And what are we doing to engage the, I guess, the heavy vehicle community?
Yeah, so there's a process. There is everyone does apply anyway. We have a good relationship and email correspondence list with all heavy vehicle users, and we constantly work with them. They're very, very good at applying because there are rules around being on a road, and it's prescribed through legislation that they have to do this depending on the level of load, as well as going on our roads, as well as crossing structures, and it's us to keep them informed around that. The challenge comes if there is damage to a structure through an overweight piece. We know that we have farmers and heavy vehicle operators sometimes do collect the bridge and cause damage to that. In some instances, we do hear about that and who that is and are able to lodge through and make a claim for insurance. In other instances, we don't. So it is a challenge, but in the first instance, we are getting the applications are robust in terms of actually getting them through and getting it processed to ensure we're not overloading.
So I guess the engagement with picking on the farmers, the engagement with farmers. I mean, you've got bridges limits coming down because of the age and the structural side, but you've got farm equipment that's getting heavier by the minute.
Yeah, and we have brought papers to council before around some creative solutions around trying to, when we have to narrow bridges for structural reasons around some of those heavy vehicle permitted trucks and trailers. When you've got stock on them and they're fully loaded, they're not typically the wider vehicles. It's the bigger tractors that don't necessarily have the weight but have the dimension challenges, and that's where we've got those
Rails.
the rails basically mounted so they are mountable in those situations. So we're trying to work where we can as best as possible with the farmers and make them aware of all of those changes with regards to structural limits on bridges. But at the end of the day, that's the importance of our bridge strategy and our bid to NZTA and getting these present value end of life assessments done so we can put the best case forward to replace those structures.
I was just going to ask, is there any one particular vehicle that causes more damage to bridges, or just a combination of a lot?
I think Tracy's point to bigger vehicles on the roads is a challenge, and we encourage people to take care when going across our structures and everything like that. And if you're unsure, touch base with us.
We've been a few of them in our corner. Anyway, any other questions? Yep.
Are you confident that the other fees and charges that are collected under your portfolio now meet legislation? Wonderful, thank you.
Other questions? Someone move recommendations? Tracy, good to see them. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Stu. We are now moving to page 53, item number 8, a request by Cromwell Community Board for use of Cromwell Reserves Contribution Fund. Right.
So firstly, welcome to those who are assisting first meeting. If you like to be in front of me. So this report is following a request from the Cromwell Community Board that they held on their meeting that they held on the 16th of September. During deliberations of the community grants, the board suggested that a request from the Cromwell Bike Park could or should be funded from the Cromwell Reserve Contribution Fund. The balance of that fund as at the 30th of June was $2.8 million. And the fund is used to fund developments, has been used to fund developments at the bike park in the past. Disadvantage of doing that is that that amount, the 20,000, wouldn't be available for other projects such as the Cromwell Racecourse Reserve project that's scheduled for sometime in the future. But the advantage is that it would enable Cromwell Community Board to have a second community grants round. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody from the Cromwell Community Board want to speak?
Yeah, I've got a question, if I may. I was kind of under the impression that we're not actually approving a grant of 30,000 to the Cromwell Early Learning Centre.
This is the bike park. So the Cromwell Community Board has the delegation to approve grants.
Yeah.
It has done so for the Cromwell Early Learning Centre. What Cromwell Community Board asked for is they thought that the grant that was provided to the bike park would have been better funded out of the Reserve Contribution Fund, which has got a balance of $2.8 million, rather than the grant's $50,000 budget.
Right.
And it needs to seek ratification for that from council.
So the only thing that we're actually being asked to do is to reimburse that $20,000.
The others are community.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Just, I have a question on process here, because I guess obviously now with the district-wide funding model, and how this, I think we probably need just to make sure that everyone is clear of the process of how this works, because obviously that's gone through a grant process, but it's now not going to be a grant. And I think it would be really clear for everyone to, including myself, to know exactly how these type of things should perhaps be addressed in the future so that we are,
I don't disagree. It's been ad hoc until today. I mean, I wrote the report on the previous bike park report. That entity was working with council's officers and various departments and wanted to know how to get it. So we presented a report to the Cromwell Community Board and it was approved again through that fund. But there isn't a clear process, nor policy from council on the use of those reserve contributions. There's the development contributions policy. Whether that's lining up to the development that's happening is worth exploring.
So what you're saying is that, maybe I'm picking it wrong, that it should have stayed in the grants because it'll have to be in a long-term plan or a plan to be coming out of a reserve.
So Neil suggested this. So Councillor Gillespie suggested that that the reserve contribution fund is for development on reserves, which this proposal is. He suggested that that reserve fund for the Cromwell Ward is $2.8 million, and that that it would be, this is the type of activity that that fund should be used for. I'm presenting that for you to.
I think that would align with the community's expectations, where if they are making a contribution to reserves, that it would then be used to fund things on reserves. And I think that lines up, but maybe that's something that we do need to look at tidying with a policy for applications that involve building or putting something on council reserve land that is for recreational purposes or aligns with the purpose of that reserve.
That's all the reserves left over out of the district-wide funding wash up.
If it's been
Particular reserve, which is one sometimes we get confused about. Neil was always very quick to bring us back to what we're talking about here. We have reserves, but this is money that's taken for specific purpose to develop on council reserve land.
it's like a targeted, it can only be spent on reserves. It's not in a big pot of reserves.
Generally, yeah,
like
reserve, but it's not reserved, only targeted for Cromwell.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Can only be used.
and Cromwell reserve land.
Like, I don't think there's an issue with a pot with any clearance or any of that stuff. It's just having the process and policy in place so that when it comes up again, because it will, we just have that in place.
Only way to get it approved, isn't it? Get the community board to do it. Now we all feel bad saying no, so.
And,
I've done CCV, I reckon.
and because it's reserved, that's why it has to come back to council. Community grants sit with the community boards. But because they're tapping into a different fund, that's a council
I
decision.
did talk to the chief financial officer when we were drafting this report, just to make sure that this was in line with his presentation on reserves.
I've got a question about that though. Is this reserves fund, is it just for the use of council projects, for example, or could somebody who's occupying a reserve, give the example of the sports club, for example, apply to use funds from that?
At the moment,
Yes,
that isn't clarified.
yeah, that's what this one. Yeah,
And so in the past,
Potentially, yes.
there was a proposal for, the example I know of is the bike park reserve.
yeah.
Um,
But the sports club could, for example, we know that they've got a building project on, so they could actually come to the council and say, we would like to, get a grant from that fund.
it would need to be part of thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably need to be part of the policy, because then you could end up with the situation where you are putting a reserves contribution into something that is a private enterprise or a private building that's actually not available to the public because it's locked when they're not there. And so all of that would need to tie into any future policy, David.
Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. Recommendations: that we receive the report and that we accept the CCB's request to reimburse their community grants account from the Cromwell Reserves Contributions Fund account for the Cromwell Bike Park Inc. grant application of $20,000. So $20,000 would go from the reserve back to the Cromwell Community Field Grants. Cheryl's happy to move it. Martin's happy to second it. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, Rebecca.
And it is on Alex's
Now
work
our poor
program.
little
this
ginger
policy
kids won't
grant.
get sunburn in them when they get BMXing.
Yeah.
Schoolly performance and business reporting. Welcome.
So firstly, I'd just like to say if the attachment is looking a little bit skew with you guys, apologies. I'm not sure what happened there, so we'll improve that for next quarter. So this is the first business reporting that has come to council, at least in my time. So previously we did business planning and we would report on that quarterly. So we've taken a bit of a different approach, which is to work alongside the performance measures, which are defined in the long-term plan, to come up with some data items that should be meaningful and informative for you to see what's happening across the organisation and the district. We've also included some project updates, which are meant to be a snapshot of projects. So things like the water mains that you just heard about from the water team, they will continue to bring detailed updates, but this is just intended to be a quarterly snapshot to provide an update in a centralised location. This is intended to be flexible reporting. So what you see now is not necessarily going to be the exact thing that you see next quarter. So there are some things that are 6 monthly. So you'll see more things pop up throughout the year and some things that are reported annually as well. For the performance measures this quarter, we've stripped out any that are annual. So we used to kind of just bring all the performance measures to you and then say, we don't have anything for this one because it's an annual measure. So we've just taken those out and you'll see those at the end of the year. So there are 72 measures. Congratulations to anyone who spotted the typo on page 56 where it says 71. So there were 72 measures and of those 56 were achieved. So that's 16 that were not achieved this quarter. And mostly they are due to the continued increase in legislative requirements. But there is good news. So whilst the maybe for the completion of resource consents within the statutory timeframe hasn't been met, it is the highest achievement in over 12 months and the third quarter where that statistic has improved. So whilst it's not being met, there is positive news in that area. Some highlights for the quarter include the strong numbers to visits to the pool and libraries, as well as the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs placements, which are well ahead of target. We do have 2 fast track applications that have not been lodged yet, but we do expect that the Santana fast track application will be lodged at some point soon. And we're just keeping an eye on the Remarkables application as well, because that is on the approved list. And I will take any questions about the reporting and hope that I can answer them, and if not, defer to any of the experts around the room.
Amelia, question.
In those planning and regulatory roles and environmental where that not been met, would they have met criteria 5 or 6 years ago? Like, is it because the regulation changed so much in that period of time that we're struggling, I guess I'm saying?
I do think it's dependent on the applications that are received and how complicated they are, and sort of the length of time that needs to be given to the applications. So I couldn't say whether that would have been different 5 years ago, but
I can answer on more ones. So last year there's Department of Internal Affairs mandatory non-financial reporting measures that we have to put into our annual reports and long-term plans. Last year the government changed those for 3 waters to align more with the water regulators reporting. The water regulator has a lot more measures than what we show here. This is a subset of those. The water regulators times from 1 January through to the 31st of December, the DIA is then taking a subset of those and put them across a financial year, which makes it really complicated for my team in reporting. So we didn't have to report on this number of measures as part of our annual report. We basically said protozoa compliance and bacterial compliance were the only 2 mandatory measures. But now we have to get down to a whole lot of different rules and distribution rules.
And just from my knowledge too, some of those ones within the planning department, I know this is QP's area, some of those have been in legislation for quite some time, such as resource consent, statutory timeframes.
Yeah, I can't talk to what 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying with regulation, mate, we're not necessarily not doing the role and everything's pretty good, but it's very hard to keep up when regulations keep moving on those reports.
Yeah, I guess the factors that it comes back to is what we talk about is around staff challenges and resourcing in terms of having the number of people in roles and still looking at recruiting into that planning team for 2 roles that we've been struggling to recruit for. We do have a panel that's supporting us at the moment with meeting those timeframes and everything like that, but it's still a challenge. And you look how much growth there is, how many resource consents we have coming in the door and everything like that, and building things, all of that, we're in a high period of growth as well, which again puts challenge and pressure on the team.
That's pretty good, really.
In the water space, a number of them it's taking capital investment to achieve compliance with some things, and the whole around the fact that we would have reported previously that we measured, but now we have to record the data, and if you get a small outage in that data for like 15 minutes, you're now non-compliant. So it doesn't mean your plant's non-compliant. You recorded the data for that 15-minute slot.
Thank you.
Any other questions? This is a really great way to read the information, much improved on previous. It's clear, there's some big numbers in there, especially around our swim schools and our library and pool visits. Yeah, and pleased to see lots of green boxes and things improving and moving in the right direction. So no, thank you very much. Yeah. So 7 is our recommendations that we receive the report and its contents be noted. Thank you, Stu. Seconded, thank you, Sarah. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The risk report. This is exciting.
So this is the 2nd month that the key risk report has been delivered in the public forum. So this is a static report from last time. This key risk register only gets updated quarterly. So that update process is actually happening right now. for the next Audit and Risk Committee, who will receive an updated register at the start of December. But right now, we've got the same risks that we had last month. So for the September quarterly reporting, that's 2 very high risks. That's 3 waters management and affordability and financial sustainability. 4 high, 8 medium, and 2 low risks, with no very low risks sitting on this register. So I'll take the report as read and go for any questions.
Has your 3 waters risk rating changed now that the plan's been approved by DIA? Dropped it?
No. So we do anticipate that that one will stay very high, probably until the establishment of the CCO and that movement in 2027.
For new people, this is the second month that we've brought the key risk register to the public part of the meeting. Previously, it was always in the public excluded section. We think it's really important that our public are aware of the other risks and priorities that we're overseeing as part of it. So they may or may not be aware. I haven't had any questions about it or calls from the media, but hey, there's always time.
Sure, it's top of the agenda for many people in the public.
Perfect. The recommendation is that the report be received and its contents noted. Mover, please. Thank you, Nathan. Seconded. Thank you, Bob. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Amelia. Now, if you want to duck across to your additional attachments, which was the late paper from Wayne. Tuesday, the young elected members. Is there anything?
No, I'll just take the paper as read. Jaden's would like to attend this session in Wellington. Normally it would go to the board first, but of course, with elections happening and whatnot, there wouldn't be the BCB wouldn't be meeting until I think it was the day before he was scheduled to attend. So we would be asking for forgiveness, not permission, which is and also we have to do some work on that particular policy because of course now council holds the purse strings in this particular instance. So although we want to gain permission from BCB, actually we need to have permission from council as well, because you're the ones who are going to give up the money.
Percy? Someone second that? Thank you, Cheryl. Any questions or comments?
Sorry, I just,
Yes.
it just says, it says who are under the age of 40. I think we had a discussion the other day that said 40 or under, didn't it?
Yes, it is technically 40 and under on election day.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's intriguing.
Okay, that is intriguing. Yes, it is. Although we can confirm that by the time you're getting to your late 30s and going to a young elected members event, you are feeling quite old.
This includes most around this table other than Curtis.
The mayor is 40 and under,
Righty.
not under 40. Is that, did you make it, Jen? Is that, you just want to feel included for one more year?
Perfect. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Back to your council agenda, please, for the governance report, which begins at page 87.
There's nothing in particular to report, but I'll just for newer folk. So what this report does is it shows all the resolutions that have gone before and how they're going, essentially. Or sometimes or not, but basically how they're going toward completion.
So once they complete, they drop off.
They do. Yep. And so and what we'll do is we show it as a complete everyone's happy with that, then it drops off.
Fine, but
Yes,
do
we
get-
did drop the.
we did drop one that saved about 37 pages.
Yes.
And then they get updated before each meeting as well. And if there isn't an update, it'll just say, for example, the Kaibu Reserve, no further progress has been made to date. So there is quite a lot of detail in some of those. And then other times it goes for a year with no change on hold.
And the older ones sit at the top of the list.
Yeah, the older ones are at the top. The newest update is also at the top. Yeah.
Right, no questions, comments? I'm happy to move that the report be received and its contents noted. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Martin. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Date of the next meeting, 26th of November 2025. And if you move to page 117 for the reasons below, the recommendation is that we resolve to exclude the public from the next items. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Cheryl. Seconded. Thank you, Tracy. All those in favour?
Marvin says yes.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll just pause momentarily while Wayne works his technical magic.